comment instructions. Anybody who wishes to address the Planning Commission during the public forum or on the subject matter being discussed, you'll be able to get connected through IT with instructions on tonight's agenda. And calling the meeting to order. And the next agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Chuan, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We appreciate your leading. And next agenda item here is roll call with Commission Secretary. Please conduct the roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Albana.
Present.
Oh, Commissioner Alcorn.
Here.
Commissioner Belong.
Present.
Vice Chair Chuan.
here.
Commissioner Ciardella.
Present.
Commissioner Galong. And Chair Tao.
Thank you.
Thank
Here.
you.
And the next agenda item, here's welcoming the two new planning commissioners. I'd like to take this time on behalf of the Planning Commission and staff, welcome Commissioners Larry Ciardella and Commissioner Alexander Galan as the new planning commissioners on the commission, and you previously have served on the Planning Commission as well, and we appreciate your continued service to the city and engagement with the community and the public. And thank you very much and welcome back on the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarification purposes, traditionally with the new commissioners, they're in the in-person Planning Commission meetings, there's always a swearing in ceremony right at the beginning. Both Commissioners Ciardella and Galan have been previously sworn in at a separate Zoom webinar by the city clerk, witnessed by the staff and chair. And so I just want to do a bit of clarification there. Next agenda item here is a conflict of interest declaration with city attorney. Please poll the commissioners.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I ask whether any of the commissioners have a financial or personal conflict of interest on any of the items before you tonight.
None.
Yeah. None.
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 Okay. Let the record reflect none to that question.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Appreciate it. And next agenda item here is approval of the agenda. Commissioners, any changes? Staff, any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Can I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Albana. And just with a voice vote, if you will know your approval or disapproval. Aye.
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 Okay, sounds like unanimously approved. And
Okay. Chair, just for formality, I think we should just go by roll call vote for these motions.
absolutely. Would you like me to reconduct the roll call? Okay,
Yes,
thank you. Okay, I'll start with Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Galan. Commissioner Galan, you need to unmute your.
Aye.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ciardella.
Aye.
Commissioner Alcorn.
Aye.
Vice Chair Tron.
Aye.
Chair, aye as well. 7-0, aye. And motion approved. Thank you. And announcements. Excuse me. Go back one step. Approval of minutes, and the minutes will be deferred as a deferred item to the next Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
And for the 3 meeting minutes, that's so noted in tonight's agenda. And the next agenda item here is the announcements. Planning commissioners, any announcements? Vice Chair Chuan.
Thank you, Chair Tao. I just wanted to note earlier this last week, I met with the applicant.
The applicant for the public hearing item this evening?
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And any other announcements? And also announcement from the Chair. Chair also has met with the applicant on February 2nd, and for the public hearing item for this evening on this evening's agenda. Thank you very much. And Planning Director, any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just 3 items that may be of interest to the Planning Commission. So tomorrow night at 5:30, the City Council will have a special council meeting to discuss the capital improvement program for the city. That is always an interesting discussion. And tonight, as you heard, the parks, or excuse me, the trails, pedestrian and bike plan is one of the many CIP projects that will be discussed. So if you're interested, again, tomorrow night at 5:30. Next Tuesday, on the 16th of February, there will be the regular council meeting, and they will have a mid-year budget discussion. So this is a check-in 6 months into the current fiscal year for the finance director to present any adjustments that need to be made to the budget. And after the year of COVID or more that we've had, that will be an interesting discussion as well. Also, at that regular meeting, among other items, will be presentation of a community survey, the results from a community survey that was done. And I think the planning commissioners may find that of interest as well. And then finally, 2 weeks away, on the 23rd of February, of course, will be another special city council meeting where they will receive your recommendation on the general plan update. And we look forward to culminating that multi-year project with the city council on the 23rd. So those are 3 important meetings that are coming up in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Oh, may I make one other? Sorry, I always have one more thing. I'm sorry. I have some actually very good news I'd like to share with the Planning Commission. The city heard this week that we have. I assume that it was approved today by the VTA Technical Advisory Committee. The city will be the recipient of a little bit over $1 million grant to implement a local. We call it a micro transit project. And as we have more details about that, I'll send them out in an email to you. Actually, it's in a nutshell, it's to set up it's grant money to set up an 18-month pilot program. This is money from the VTA, and it will set up a program for localized micro transit, so a small vehicle on-demand transit service that will be available to Milpitas residents to and from the BART station, to and from VTA light rail stations, and to and from the town center. So we're very excited to see that project implemented over the next few years. It's very innovative, and it's part of the partnership that the city has with the Valley Transit Authority to provide transit services in our community. And we hope that it will be highly successful and be able to be replicated around the valley. But City of Milpitas, the City of Morgan Hill, and the City of Palo Alto received some, and a couple of other organizations received that funding from the Measure B funds that were approved a number of years ago. Thank you.
Planning Director, on that particular item here, if I can request a little bit more clarification. So these are vehicles, or these are some other modes of transportation? If you can enlighten us with that. Most
important part, yeah. The city will be partnering with it's a public-private partnership. So we'll be partnering with a service provider called Rideco, and they will be essentially providing the vehicles. They're small, I'll call them taxi-like vehicles, maybe a little bit larger than that. Smaller than a bus, but larger than your regular car. And it's transit, on-demand transit. And the idea is they refer to it as first mile, last mile transit. And so the link, or the weakness in the transit ridership is always getting to the transit station. So, and the people, it's inconvenient for people to drive their own vehicle down and to park and to pay for parking. So to help support our wonderful transit center and BART station, BART service here in Milpitas, this will be available to Milpitas residents to and from that facility. And it would be very handy. It will run, I don't think it runs 24 hours a day, but it runs early in the morning till late at night. It will serve employees in Milpitas as well as our residents who want to use either light rail or BART service or get to the civic center and the town center.
Is this a free of charge service?
There is a small fee, but it's highly subsidized. So I'll pull the some of the details together and send that out to you in an email. You may be hearing more about it in the media too, as the VTA and others announced that. But it was discussed today in a public meeting, so we're able to make that announcement.
Is the vehicle like an airport shuttle type, like a smaller van, or?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. With my email, I'll attach the PowerPoint that we put together that provides some of the details, and you can see what it looks like. It's a very attractive vehicle. We branded to Milpitas, and again, provide local service for our residents.
Thank you for the bit of interesting news. We appreciate it.
We always like to have it when money comes in.
We never reject that notion. Thank you. And the next agenda item here is the public forum. Those interested are invited to address the Planning Commission on any subject not on tonight's agenda, orally via Zoom webinar, instructions above. Speakers may provide their name and city of residence for the recording secretary's record. And comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less. As an item not listed on the agenda, no response is required from the city staff or the Planning Commission, and no action can be taken. Planning Commission may instruct the staff to place the item on a future meeting agenda. Ms. Medina, any speakers in queue?
Yes, Chair, we have Mr. Irvish Mehta in the queue to speak.
Okay, one speaker, ma'am? Only one speaker?
Just, yes, at this moment, just one speaker.
Okay, Mr. Mehta, you have your 3 minutes, and please go.
Thank you very much, Chair, and all the commissioner. I want to let the Planning Commission know about that. There are two. There is general master plan update, and then there is a Milpitas Metro Plan update that's currently ongoing. And with both the plans getting updated, there are different regions and there are different districts. They are being allotted as a part of a commercialized industrial, as well as transit system zone, and as well as a residential zone. It is very important to note here that as the Metro Milpitas plan getting developed, it is important to evaluate that what part of a city is required to be rehabilitated, and also the part of a city where the new development is taking place, as what development has taken place. For example, if there are any flood areas near the creek, what are the different elevation that is required to be leveled up, so that and on a further occurrences, when any particular development that is taking place near the creek, the elevation is to be maintained all the time, considering the flood, and as well as providing the right set of federal emergency standards and implement the standards accordingly near the creek parks. Also to implement that if there are any bridges or any crossway path that is being implemented, to consider that what kind of a divisional paintings, what kind of lighting that is required to be implemented near the crossway bridge, as well as near the bridges for the cross part near the bar station, as well as other transit system that is being implemented on the Calaveras Boulevard as well, to understand that what it is required to develop a city, and what it is that required that for setting up the right set of a system within the city. Also, it is important to evaluate and plan the city development in a way that identify the right set of areas and putting up the right set of a standard. Say, for example, in the state of Arizona, there are roads which are actually implemented on a solar cell. So basically, those roads actually generating the electricity, and then they are powering the roads. They are powering the electricity within the entire city and the street lights, and as well as those roads are basically they are concrete roads, which are implemented with the solar cells. Such kind of implementation helps city to reduce the cost and as well as allow the city to develop a right set of standards. Also to implement the right set of gas meters in specific areas. In certain areas that there are still PG&E outages that's been seen. Also in the same way, there are still certain development areas where the right set of gas meter pipelines are required. Implementing both the ways as well as providing the right set of fiber connections within the undeveloped area, should require to be planned. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Speaker. And the chair marvels at the speaker's ability on both presentations, ending at just a couple seconds before 3 minutes. Thank you. And any other speakers? Ms. Medina?
Chair, we have no other speakers in the queue.
Thank you very much. And moving on to the public hearing. We have one public hearing item this evening, and this is the District Lot 3 Amendment. Director Thomas, if you will. Mr. Thomas, your mute button.
There we go. I was looking for my agenda. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're pleased tonight to have a presentation for you by our senior planner, Michael Fasati. And this project has been making its way toward the Planning Commission for a number of months. You're all aware of all of the great developments going on down near the transit station under the city's transit area specific plan. One of our larger developers, of course, is Lion Living. They're our applicant tonight. They have before you a site development permit amendment and a conditional use permit amendment. So 2 amendments to 2 existing permits that were approved a number of years ago. But as in response to market changes and the desires of the developer, they've now come forward with a new plan for what is called Lot 3 within the district development. Now they also refer to it as the Fields development. As you'll see in the presentation, the Fields development or the district development made up of 4 lots. And this is Lot 3, which is which faces Great Mall Parkway. So, and it's the last of the 4 buildings to come before you. A number of months ago, the Planning Commission approved amendments to Lot 4, and that building is now under construction. So Lot 4 jumped a little bit ahead of Lot 3, but this site is a little bit complex and complicated because it includes not only a residential building, which Michael will describe, but it also is the site for a hotel project within the district. So we've been looking forward to this for a number of months, even a number of years, to bring it forward. So without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Michael for the staff report, and we appreciate your attention to the details of the 2 amendments.
Good evening, commissioners, fellow staff and residents and members of the public. I am Michael Fasati. I'm a planner here with the city of Milpitas, and the item in front of you is an application for amendments to previously approved site development and conditional use permits for the district Lot 3. Next slide, please. The district Lot 3 is a mixed-use building and hotel project located at 1320 McCandless Drive. As Director Thomas stated, due to the market conditions as well as the pandemic, the applicant has proposed to decrease the amount of development on the site. Specific modifications are listed above and include reducing the residential units from 423 to 357, reducing the hotel rooms from 175 to 162, decreasing retail space from approximately 59,000 square feet to approximately 25,000 square feet, reducing the heights of both buildings, eliminating private open space for 71 residential units, and completely modifying the architecture of the hotel and mixed-use building. Once we provide context of the project's location, staff has provided separate slides on each modification request to inform the Planning Commission of the changes proposed. Next slide, please. This is an aerial image of the Fields site. The Fields is a mixed-use development approximately 15.5 acres in size and will host over 1,000 residential units, 90,000 total square feet of retail space in a new hotel. The site is located at the intersection of Great Mall Parkway and McCandless Boulevard, directly south of the Great Mall. Next slide, please. This is the zoning map of the property. The project site zoning designation is very high density mixed use with a transit oriented development overlay, also known as MXD2-TOD. It's identified in the purple color. The project site is surrounded by general commercial to the north, more commonly known as the Great Mall, that's shown as red, as well as very high density mixed use development to the east, south, and west, also identified in the purple color. The green portion on the left is the east channel of the Penitencia Creek. Next slide, please. The Fields is what many consider as a master plan development, with each development area complementing one another in order to create a high quality pedestrian friendly residential district with retail areas where residents can access personal goods and services. The city refers to the Fields development as the district's lot 1 through 4. The developers refer to the Fields as 4 separate entities as Turing, Graham, Elion, and Gideon. The area that we'll focus on for the remainder of this presentation is the District Lot 3, also known as Elion, in the upper right-hand corner. Next slide, please. The first modification is associated with removal of residential units. As discussed in the staff report, the Fields represents the mixed-use development within the district, and the Fields is 4 separate lots, districts lots 1 through 4. In 2015, District Lot 1, also known as Turing, was ready to be developed. Therefore, the applicant requested to remove the District Lot 1 from its 2015 amendment and focus on the development of the District Lot 2 through Lot 4, as well as some townhome development known as Centerpoint B and C and Huret Court. For this reason, this is why you don't see the 372 residential units from the District Lot 1 project in the table. All you see is the units from Districts Lot 2 through Lot 4. Therefore, in 2015, the city approved 814 multifamily units specifically within the Fields between Lots 2 and Lot 4. Between 2015 and today, the developer has submitted multiple applications to decrease units in the District Lot 2 and increase units in the District Lot 4. In the city's view, the amount of allowable units never increased over the 814 units approved in 2015. Therefore, the discretion can remain at the Planning Commission level. In summary, the developer has proposed to develop 777 multifamily residential units, which is a permitted density via density averaging allowed within the TASP, which is permitted within the general plan, transit area specific plan, and zoning code. The change of units per the applicant was due to market conditions, which will be discussed later this evening by the applicant. Next slide, please. The second modification has to do with a decrease in hotel rooms. In 2015, the city approved a 175-room traditional hotel that would cater to the business and weekend traveler with limited stays. In 2021, the developer has proposed to develop a 162-room extended stay hotel, catered to more of a long-term business traveler. The TASP does not have a minimum requirement for hotel rooms, but the TASP did consider hotel rooms in general and is allocated as allowed up 300 rooms total within the TASP. This would be the first hotel project in the TASP. Therefore, the 162 rooms is less than the 300 and comply with the TASP standards. Next slide, please. Also, according to TASP standards, the city requires 200 square feet of retail multiplied by the minimum density of residential units permitted in the MXD2 zoning district. That means, I did the calculations for you, it's included in the staff report. The applicant must provide a total of 66,744 square feet of retail between the districts Lot 2, 3, and 4. So far, the applicant has provided approximately 22,000 square feet of retail for lots 2 and 4. Therefore, to meet the TASP standard, the applicant must provide an additional 45,000 square feet. Back in 2015, the district Lot 3 was projected to provide over 59,000 square feet of retail. But as previously stated, due to market demands, The applicant has downsized their retail proposal to approximately 25,000 square feet. The exhibit you have in front of you, if you look at those tan areas, those identify the retail areas that are being proposed. Staff has also included patio areas in front of certain retail spaces to count as additional retail space due to the potential of outdoor seating and retail use. Since this task standard is not being met, the applicant has applied for an exception to the retail requirement. The exception request is discussed closer to the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. In 2015, the project site was approved for a 49,240 square foot amenity area on the top floor. In 2021, the amenity area has reduced to 18,225 square feet. The reduction is allowed per task standards because the task does not have a requirement for amenity deck size. Task requires a total amount of open space, but that's for both public and private. This can be satisfied through what they refer to as a park and lieu fee. And since this project is in task, it's required to pay a task fee. 2/3 of that park and lieu fee is collected via that task fee. The remaining 1/3 of the open space must be provided, or an additional park and lieu fee must be collected. The project has demonstrated that they're in compliant with private open space, as the reduced amenity deck is coupled with the ground floor courtyard. The project also includes a public open courtyard, which is discussed in detail within the staff report. For the record, there is a small label that states beer garden. The beer garden will require a separate conditional use permit prior to approval. This has been noted as condition number 16 within the resolution. Next slide, please. This is an exhibit demonstrating the reduced height. This is demonstrated within the exhibit, showing the mixed-use development and hotel lowering its height from 10 stories to 7 stories. There is no minimum height limit in TASP, and the maximum height limit is 12 stories with a standard approval or 20 stories with a conditional use permit approval. Since the project's height is consistent with TASP standards, as well as complementary to the other mixed-use developments surrounding it, staff is recommending approval for this modification. Next slide, please. The TASP requires that each multifamily residential unit have either 50 square feet of patio, assuming the unit is on the ground floor, or 40 square feet of balcony, assuming the unit is above the ground floor. Therefore, if a developer proposes 357 residential units, they are required per TASP to develop 357 patios and balconies to meet the TASP standard. The applicant has proposed 357 residential units, but has only proposed to develop 286 patios and balconies. Therefore, the applicant has requested another exception as permitted by the TASP. Within your packet, specifically attachment D, the applicant provides a narrative on why patios were removed. Staff can support the exception due to the additional amenities incorporated to the project, such as a public courtyard, rooftop amenity area, and urban plaza designed into this development. Additional discussion about the proposed exception can be found in detail within the staff report. Next slide, please. We believe the most obvious change to the site development and conditional use permit amendment has to do with the architecture. The staff report goes into detail about the proposed changes, but since this is a presentation, it's much easier to demonstrate with pictures rather than words. So what we will provide you is images from 6 different viewpoints. This first viewpoint is from the northeast, with a focus on the approved and proposed space between the hotel and mixed-use building. Now, if you can imagine, if you were looking at this, you'd be looking at it as if you were on the light rail that runs down Great Mall Parkway heading southbound towards Montague Expressway. So you'd kind of be up in the air looking down at the development. The approved project included 2 levels of retail, one on the ground floor and one on the second floor, as well as a sky bridge. You can see this image in the upper left-hand corner. The proposed project completely removes the second level of retail, with the ground floor being turned into a drop-off location for the hotel and an area for a retail pad for a potential restaurant. The sky bridge has completely been removed. Although it may not be apparent in the renderings, There is a major difference between building heights from the approved to the proposed project. As previously stated and noted within the staff report, the proposed height is compliant with task standards. Next slide, please. This image is the rendering facing Great Mall Parkway with a focus directly on the mixed-use building. Again, the image that I'm asking you to look at is if you were on the light rail heading southbound towards Montague Expressway above the street. Both projects have painted plaster exteriors and vehicular access from Great Mall Parkway into the development, but the colors, architectural details, and ground floor use have changed significantly. As shown, the proposed building has colors that are now black, white, light and dark gray, and red ombre, which means a very subtle transition of shades of red. Previously, windows were accentuated by these square and rectangular projections. Those have been replaced with a stair-step eave that separates the darker units from the lighter units. One major difference between the existing and proposed is the loss of retail along the ground floor, which is replaced with residential units. Next slide, please. The following image is a view from the west elevation, also known as Centerpoint Drive. So you had turn right on Great Mall Parkway onto Centerpoint Drive. The proposed design includes the same color palette presented to the north, facing Great Mall Parkway, with a curved architectural black awning feature along the northwest corner top portion of the building. The middle portion of the building would be made of a corten steel, which is a steel group of alloys used for outdoor construction. It provides a weathered, rusted appearance over time. The southwest corner of the mixed-use building will be lined with large gray brick and windows. Again, ground floor retail space is completely removed from the Centerpoint Drive elevation. Next slide, please. The following image is a view from the south elevation at Market Street. So now you're standing at Market Street, you're looking at the proposed building. The city doesn't have a rendering of the approved building from its south view, but we do have a rendering of the proposed building, which you see in the upper portion of this slide. The proposed design includes the same color palette presented to the north and west. There is 2 additional levels of residential that are built above the ground floor retail and amenity areas, which is located approximately 160 linear feet from the corner of Centerpoint Drive and Market Street. A second vehicular access entrance and exit is proposed on Market Street, giving you 2 ways of accessing the mixed-use development. Unlike the other slides, we've included a south elevation, which helps better explain how the project is 5 stories near Centerpoint Drive and transitions into a 7-story with ground floor retail and the hotel near McCandless Drive. Next slide, please. This view is looking from the intersection at McCandless Drive and Market Street. The proposed elevation contains a similar sized urban plaza, a cascading water feature, and replaces the previous pond with a large grassy lawn, which also replaces palm trees and paving of the previously approved urban plaza. The plaza will be multifunctional and can act as a small amphitheater for concerts, a place for outdoor yoga, or simply a place for public gatherings. The urban plaza is the focal point of the field's development and identified in the task area as a required open space area. As such, it meets the task standards. Next slide, please. The proposed west elevation is a view of the hotel located at the corner of Great Mall Parkway and McCandless Drive. The proposed hotel is 7 stories as compared to 9 stories that was approved. The color of the hotel includes light and dark gray tones, windows with black mullions, and a metal awning elements held up by chains coming from the wall. Next slide, please. As previously discussed, the project meets the standards of the task with the exception of retail square footage and private open space. The task requires 200 square feet of retail for the minimum residential unit density and either a patio or balcony for each residential unit. If those standards cannot be met, an exception must be approved, which includes appropriate findings be made. The applicant has proposed to provide a farmer's market on a portion of Market Street to compensate for the reduction in required retail and the removal of private open space from 71 studio units. Farmers markets will not be permanent, but will likely operate on a weekend morning and at least 1 to 2 nights per week. The applicant will be required to obtain a separate conditional use permit for the farmers market to establish details such as size, location, hours of operation, and security. But the applicant proposes to install the necessary infrastructure, such as electrical outlets and lighting, to support a farmers market during the construction of Lot 3. Staff supports this public amenity and recommends that it be used to make the required findings for the exception to the task standards, as detailed in the staff report. Next slide, please. Findings have been made in the affirmative for the project for both the site development and conditional use permit amendment. Those findings include demonstrating consistency with the general plan, transit area specific plan, and zoning ordinance, as well as determining the proposed use will not be detrimental to property or improvements in the vicinity, nor public health, safety, or welfare. Additional findings must be made to permit the exceptions, which includes the exception to meet the design intent identified within the zoning district and or specific plan, and do not detract from the overall architectural landscaping and site planning integrity of the proposed development. And the exceptions allow for a public benefit not otherwise obtainable through the strict application of the specific standards. Those findings are addressed in detail in both the staff report and the resolution. Next slide, please. The city's CEQA consultant prepared an addendum to the task EIR in the form of a memorandum, which is recorded as Exhibit B attached to this resolution. This memo provides an accurate description of the revised project and confirms that the proposed changes will reduce the overall size and intensity of development on Lot 3, and therefore the proposed project will not create any additional environmental impacts not previously analyzed or disclosed. Staff has also found this project to be exempt from California Environmental Quality Act standard sections 15182 and 15183 of the CEQA guidelines. Next slide, please. Prior to public notice, the city solicited public comment on the project plans through an online public forum on the city's website. We were unable to host a public meeting. The project plans, project description, and contact information were placed online on January 20th. But we're willing to take comments until the day of the meeting as of today. To date, at least at this moment in time, we haven't received any comments associated with the project. The project was also noticed with postcards, as well as a notice placed on the Milpitas Post and city website. Next slide, please. In closing, staff recommends opening and closing the public hearing, considering the memorandum demonstrating consistency with the task EIR addendum and added exceptions in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopt resolution number 20-022, approving the site development permit amendment, SA 20-0004, and conditional use permit amendment number UA 20-0011, subject to the attached conditions of approval. This concludes staff's summary of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'd like to inform the commission that there are representatives of Lion Living that have requested to provide a short presentation highlighting their project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fasadi. And Mr. Fasadi, just for clarification purposes, just for definition, the words district and the fields are kind of used in almost in some ways interchangeable. Are they representing the same block, or are there differences?
There's a subtle difference. The fields is a subset of the district.
Okay.
In 2015, the district included 3 100% residential areas, which have currently been built. The fields is the remaining mixed use portion. Thank
you very much for the clarification. And I believe Mr. Bull from Lion Living is on the screen here. And welcome. And sir, you have approximately 10 minutes for your presentation. If you need more time, because it's a fairly complex project, Chair will be more than happy to entertain some additional time to allow for the for the presentation. Thank you. Mr. Bo, do you have your audio unmuted?
Through the chair, it takes a couple moments to get them online. So if we can
Thank you very much.
patience.
And while the applicant's coming online, Chair has another question for Mr. Fasadi. The original plan was 814 DUs, and currently it's about 777 DUs, along with less retail square footage. Does this change the task fee setup, or are we going to run into a shortcomings in the task fee collection?
Well, that's a great question. The task fee is based on residential units, so the decrease in units wouldn't mean a decrease in task fee, but it may represent a decrease in overall fees. We found that we can compensate if additional units are put somewhere else. But
okay, so Director Thomas, does that change the calculus for the task areas? The sort of the balance of the task fee collection for the infrastructure changes.
Thank you, Chair. Not really. As was indicated in the presentation, some of the units that are being decreased on Lot 3 have been transferred over to Lot 4. So overall, it's net. It's the same for this project. And then, as Senior Planner Fasadi indicated, it's a per unit fee based on what is called the basic infrastructure plan. So each of the units pays a certain amount toward the overall cost of the proposed infrastructure. And so this project will continue to make the impact fee payment that was originally estimated for this site. And the last thing I'll note is that as part of the ongoing Metro Plan update, the last piece of that is we will be reviewing the basic infrastructure plan based on any new infrastructure that will be part of the plan update, and then calculating a new fee. So within the next 18 months, certainly within the next 2 years, we will have a new transit area impact fee that will apply to any new units that are built. Well, that doesn't affect this project, of course, but when that fee will go into effect, probably within the next 2 years after we update the plan.
Thank you, sir, for your clarification. Appreciate it. Has the applicant has he successfully connected?
We're not hearing him.
I see his phone online. I just see it muted.
Through the chair, I have a question for Mr. Faradi.
Yes, please.
And on the urban plaza, the grassy area that you were talking about, where they removed it looks like a fountain. You said that there's going to be outdoor concerts and things of that nature. Is that going to be permitted, or can anybody just go and set up and do something?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think what I was Fasadi, not Faradi, but
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I believe what I had said, that the plaza is designed to handle outdoor concerts and such. When it comes to anything outdoors, typically on public property, we have a special event permit process, unless a conditional use permit is placed on to allow such venues. So no one could, outside of one person, can kind of go out there, forgive me for lack of a better term, like willy-nilly, and just go out there and start singing away. We have some procedures in place to permit it or not permit it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, for instance, in San Francisco on Pier 39, you have street artists that go out and they just kind of set up on their own and do their own private shows or whatnot. And so I'm just trying to see if that's something that's going to be allowed, or if there's some kind of permit process we can put on it to kind of prevent that.
Well, that's I'd like to get Steve on board, but we have, this is on private property, so the private property owner would be required to allow that. The city, it talks about Pier 99, Pier 39 as a public property. They typically go through a solicitor's permit through the city to kind of deal with something like that. So I believe we have some processes.
Okay. And then, so then if this is going to be all private property, then I would assume all the landscaping and maintenance is going to be provided by the applicant.
That is correct. I'll let Steve talk about it more, but it will be required they'll be required to maintain it.
Okay.
Commissioners, can you all hear me now? I tried switching phones. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
You got it? Oh, perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. And yes, Commissioner Tal, if I could have approximately 15 minutes, I'd appreciate it. Well, and I also like to thank Mike Fasati and the city staff for all of their help that they've provided to us in bringing this application forward. So I wanted to start out with the goal for our updated design is really just to create an interesting and attractive place where people will want to enjoy, explore, and live. And we're doing that through our site planning that incorporates goals from the task to create interest and activation within the public spaces in the ground floors of our buildings, along with interesting architecture. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take you through some of our public spaces, including the Plaza, Market Street, the Retail Promenade, and our greenhouse courtyard, along with our building. I'll touch on our building architecture, then I'll discuss our retail areas and amenities. And then finally, I'll conclude with Lion's commitment to the task, as well as the city of Milpitas. Next slide, please. Next, one more, please. So I'd like to start with our public plaza. We're excited that this component of the project, it's a space that we've designed to be activated, enjoyed, and explored. You can see in the foreground the open lawn. That's an open space to run and play or relax, but it can also be programmed for outdoor events. Next slide, please.
Mr. Bull, can you just kind of elaborate on approximately how large is the lawn space?
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, the overall plaza is approximately 0.8 of an acre. I didn't have that calculation for the lawn space, but that lawn, just eyeballing it, probably goes at least a half an acre.
The lawn is 3,500 square feet.
Okay. Thank you
very much.
Okay. So I wanted to just show this in plan view. Really is because there's a tiering across our plaza. The buildings are up 3 to 5 feet, a little bit higher than McCandless, and that's due to the floodplain. We have to build that up. So how we've tried to integrate that into our design is we have, of course, at the top, the outdoor seating that is kind of an extension of the retail restaurants. Then we have a next terrace down that, as Michael said in his presentation, can be used as a bandstand for live music acts or perhaps set up an outdoor movie screen. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, go back go back if you would. Sorry, I apologize. Got a little off track ahead of myself. So I also wanted to just kind of point out that we've tried to integrate functional features into our design. Like you can see the ramp along the bottom of the page to just try and get from the lower McCandless area up to the upper retail area. We've tried to have a little fun with that, with cascading waterfall alongside it. I know my kids love to sort of put their hands in water every time they see it. We hope that the families in the task area will enjoy this as well. We've also included a wood in the seating elements and the deck in order to bring warmth to the industrial modern material palette. Next slide, please. Oops, sorry, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Again, this shows a cross-section that shows sort of that terracing effect with the lower lawn, sort of draw people in off the street to enjoy the space, but also the tiered bandstand or stage, if you will. Next slide, please. And this shows some of the different capacities that we'll have for the different uses. lightly used run and play up in the upper left, or all the way up to over 400 people for a live music event. Hopefully this pandemic will end soon so we can have things like that. Next slide, please. Next, I'd like to talk about our Market Street. As Michael indicated, yes, we are excited about being able to close off a section of Market Street for farmers markets. We presented our design to our senior management CEO, Frank Surian, last month, and he was excited. That was the first thing out of his mouth. He said, oh yeah, we can have Wednesday night and Saturday morning farmers markets. So we are excited about that. As Michael indicated, we've provided the infrastructure such as power, lighting, and sound systems to support the farmers market and other events that we may want to have out there. Next slide, please. Again, just a plan view of what we have in mind. It's basically close the street from McCandless Drive to Bond Street. Our driveways into the garages are to the right of the page so they wouldn't interfere with this event. And we are, of course, in preliminary discussions with the fire department about this closure. Next slide, please. So I'd like to highlight the Retail Promenade. Thank you. Well, again, as I mentioned, due to the need to elevate the building pad to get out of the floor plan, there's a 3 to 5 foot grade differential between the sidewalk and then the adjacent sidewalks or promenade that we've built. So in an attempt to alleviate any sort of impediment, we're proposing to widen that upper sidewalk to create a boardwalk experience that's more active than a street side sidewalk. We believe that we can add outdoor dining, seating vignettes, planters, kiosks, and built-in drinking rails can be added just to create an activated urban boardwalk where visitors can stop, relax, and view the activity happening on the street. Next slide, please. Our inspiration is from the Pearl District of Portland or in other warehouse districts where the historic loading docks have been converted to commercial storefronts. Next slide, please. The Greenhouse Courtyard. One more slide, please. I wanted to come back to the Plaza to show you how we get there. So this is along with our theme of creating a place. Oh, go back, don't spoil my surprise. Creating a place to enjoy and explore. So again, when we met with Frank, he was looking at this and goes, well, I'm intrigued to see what's going on back there. And by that, he meant the area between the two buildings that can be accessed via this passageway between our hotel and apartment buildings. Next slide, please. So that passageway leads to what we call the Greenhouse Courtyard, or sort of a secret garden that's open to the public, and it opens up into just a tranquil garden in between the buildings. You can see an outdoor dining space and some other seating areas, and literally a greenhouse type building that we intend to use as a restaurant or bar or coffee shop. It's modeled on a cultivation kitchen within the packing district in Anaheim. Next slide, please. And this is the actual inspiration down in Anaheim that we used. And we were able to go there and enjoy that as well. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to discuss the building architecture, or what we like at Lion Living. We think of Elion as the crown jewel as a district of the field. Sorry, I know there's a subtle difference. So I've got all 4 buildings up here. I wanted to touch on the Elion architecture, style, and colors and materials complete the story that started with touring in the bottom left, Graham working around counterclockwise in Gideon buildings, but it also stands out on its own as a place that's distinct yet a little bit unexpected. The story that we're telling is to create a place distinct from the suburban surroundings. We want people to see Elion and the fields and want to come in and explore and think, just like Frank did, well, what's going on over there? I think I'd like to find out. Next slide, please. So the architectural style of the apartment building is what we call industrial tech. The building's contemporary form and grid facade is accented with the use of metal reveals, enhanced material components. We've used red accents on the facade to highlight the architectural components. These elements fuse together to create a modern, high-tech residential building with an industrial flair. And at the corner of Market and McCandless, as viewed from the plaza, you'll see the residential building will feature a steel and glass tower. And that tower will serve as an iconic focal point for the plaza that can even be viewed from the VTA as well. Next slide, please. Now, working our way around the block, sort of opposite from how Michael's went, is on Market Street. We've articulated the roof line with the top floor residential units that are also designed as loft units in order to create massing interest. Now, the studio units that we touched on that don't have the balconies are on the upper floors. That's the sort of diagonal, or these, what I should call, angled bay windows that to create interest in the architecture. It also provides more space inside. The building massing is further broken down by the use of the horizontal metal canopies with accent lighting, and steel elements, and the metal reveals to accentuate the grid facade. And the horizontal metal canopies actually are staggered to further create movement on the facade. Next slide, please. So on Great Mall Parkway, we've tried to create strong corners to bookend the building with the curved roof parapets will be accented with the steel beams and cross-bracing elements. Next slide, please. Again, you can see it at the westerly end of Great Mall Parkway. But the building facade along Great Mall Parkway is urban in character, and it's based on a grid, and its massing and form are derived from and respond to the mass of the elevated VTA rail structure and the design of the rail transit itself. Next slide, please. Now, the ground floor units also on Great Mall Parkway will each have a distinct accent color that will create a base and activate the pedestrian scale at street level. Next slide, please. One more, shifting over to the hotel. You know, in the change from the shift, I should say, from the industrial textile, the Elion apartment building, the hotel is an industrial modern style inspired by the architecture within the New York City meatpacking district. And we've got some of the inspiration images in front of the screen. Next slide, please. This boutique hotel architecture takes on a bold industrial character with a composition of gray tones, gray and black bricks, and black metal artwork accents. One more slide, please. And as you can see, the guest rooms are each provided with large windows, creating a quality space, views, and natural lighting. And one more slide, please. It's a boutique hotel that captures the lifestyle of the live, work, play, and social networking in Silicon Valley. Next slide, please. So as Michael discussed in the staff report, we are asking for a couple of exceptions. One is our reduced retail area. Now, I want to point out, and I think Michael touched on this a little bit, that the expanded promenade in the greenhouse courtyard, we are looking at as extensions of the retail. They're shaded in the green on the screen above. That's an additional 11,500 square feet of area that's de facto retail. Additionally, when we close off the portion of Market Street, that's another 18,000 feet of space. One more slide, please. Now, the Fields Retail District will provide an outdoor lifestyle experience that it's different from, but will complement the retail offerings at the Great Mall. The indoor-outdoor experience will also help to mitigate some of the lasting effects of the pandemic. Now, successful retail streets are double-sided with an easy ability for customers to maneuver back and forth across the street between the shops. So the retail for both Elion and Gideon, which is not shown, but it's right across the street from Elion, has been focused closer to the corner of Market and McCandless to strengthen the retail experience and create a heart for the district. Now, with that large plaza as a focal point of the community programming, the most active and successful retail will occur at this intersection in the adjacent portion of Market Street. Next slide, please. An additional ground floor retail space that's not included in the retail calculation is the area shaded in yellow at the top of the screen, what we call the hive, or the ground floor of the lobby, which will include a marketplace, a bar, and a coffee shop, to provide an additional 3,500 square feet of retail space. That is open to the public. Next slide, please. we just got our first pass at the concept interior design for that space. And this is what we have before you. And you can see on the image on the right, we're going to continue that theme of indoor-outdoor. We have indoor-outdoor promenades and patios on Great Mall Parkway and wrapping around with the McCandless. Next slide, please. So as far as the balconies, just as Michael indicated, all of our 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms have balconies. All of our ground floor studios have patios. The upper floor of the studios, we went with the angled bay windows to create the architectural interest. It also provides more square footage within the studios themselves. But we at Lion think we more than make up for that shortcoming with our generous amenity package. Of course, this before you is our Lion Living signature rooftop deck, 20,000 feet, featuring a pool, large screen television, spa, a 2,000-foot fitness center, a 2,000-foot club room, a beer garden. Again, all of these spaces also feature the indoor-outdoor components. Next slide, please. And again, we have now another 9,000 square foot ground level courtyard in the middle of the building that'll be heavily programmed with barbecues, seating areas, fire pits, another spa, game areas, and just dining areas for our residents to enjoy. And next slide, please. In addition, at the end of Market Street, or at the retail district of Market, we have our leasing office, but we have a 2,000 square foot co-working area, including a mezzanine, that'll have communal work tables, private conference rooms, private office spaces, all heavily programmed with Wi-Fi and connection ports for computers and technology for our residents to enjoy. And next slide, please. And one final amenity that continues with our theme of creating design features out of function. Well, this is both. The iconic tower at the corner of the plaza is really inside as a terminus to the residential, the corridors within the building, creating 200 square foot spaces on each level. It'll be programmed or furnished with seating areas for our residents to have a space to come and enjoy and take in the wonderful views to the west of the mountains, the bay, the courtyard below, or just maybe enjoy the sun coming in this area of the building. Next slide, please. So we'd like to
you have lost audio. Audio is lost to the speaker. There's no audio. Audio for the last minute or so, I was lost. We have an audio issue.
Love that Trader Joe's though.
testing. Testing.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Steve. Okay. All right. I don't know if you caught my story about people that I see outside my office going to and from Trader Joe's every day, but this has been a successful opening for us. Next slide, please. And we also persisted throughout the pandemic building our Graham building. We welcomed our first residents back in December, this past December. And one more slide. And again, this is our Gideon building, which we broke ground on in December of 2019. And despite the shutdown or slowdown pandemic, we continued through and are looking forward to welcoming our first residents here approximately 1 year from now. Excuse me. So I'd like to just reiterate, Lion's commitment going forward is to complete the city's vision for the task by creating a destination, not just for Lion residents, but also for the residents of the task city and the region. And our project is it's compliant with the number of apartments, number of hotel rooms, public spaces, retail, to the original entitlement, but it also comes with the public benefits contemplated in the original entitlement. We are providing this nearly 1 acre public plaza, a $500,000 contribution toward the rapid response vehicle for the fire department, and a shuttle system that will operate out of the hotel to and from the BART station that is also available to the other residents of the task. Lion's new design goes above and beyond the original approval with an approved design and an activated community. So our team is here, our Lion team. I have also our designers, Steve Gaffney with Architects Orange, Clarissa Chung with Studio 111, our landscape architect, and Brian Watson, who is our interior designer and also designs our colors and materials, who are available along with Lion personnel to answer any questions from the Planning Commission. Thank you very much.
We appreciate your extensive presentation. And just a couple items here. Also available this evening from the city of Milpitas. We also have Mr. Bill Todd, the building official, Deputy Fire Chief Albert Zamora, and the Assistant Fire Marshal Jaime Garcia, and the Transportation and Traffic Manager Steve Chan. And this is a section for the questions to the applicant and staff. If Chair can just clarify a couple of things with Mr. Bull first. Is that are the economics and market conditions the reasons, the major reasons and impetus in terms of reducing the hotel building in terms of mass and also its composition?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Second question here for you is that the marketplace, the farmers market, and the Trader Joe's, are there any quote unquote potential lease conflicts that may preclude?
No, there are not. We check that, and we'd likely just bring Trader Joe's to be a part of it, but there are no conflicts so long as we're not on the touring property itself.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. And commissioners, what I'd like to do is go ahead. Vice Chair, you have a question.
Yeah, I do have a question. Just wanted to, going along the line, your question about market conditions, as you said, the reduction in size of it. Can you address a little bit more, just elaborate a little bit more around the market conditions as to, why the reduction of the size for that? I realize it's the market, you were saying, but what specifically around?
Okay, sure. Well, I'll touch on, I think you're probably referring to the hotel and the retail, or one or the other, or both?
Both.
Okay, sure. Well, the hotel is probably no surprise to anyone these days that we're going to have a tough time financing this fund, but we think we can make it work. Original version of this, we brought it down to about 120, 135 keys, hotel key rooms, and that was what all of our market studies indicated was about the right size for this area. We're a little bit off of the 880. We're starting to get away from that location. So we have to create a destination to draw people in. But we wanted to do a couple of things. We wanted to change the construction type to a steel frame that could get up, have us build it a little faster. And with that, we felt like we could justify bringing up the key count as close as we could to 175. We should be a little bit lower per our market conditions, but we're trying to stay close. As far as the retail has been is no surprise to anybody, in decline for years, even before the pandemic, and it was simply accelerated that much further. And we also learned that the restaurants were not immune to that either. So we think we've right-sized it. by really just focusing on where it's located and the experience. Like I said, we've consolidated to where we think it can be successful around the plaza, around the west end of Market Street, so it's all together. Extending it down Market Street, starting to disconnect it between, if it's bifurcated by driveways or perhaps like it used to be wrapped around on the Great Mall, we don't think that can be successful. As it is, we're a little bit slow in leasing up over at our touring side right now. We're hoping to pick that up this year. That's the primary reason. Just we wanted to have an experiential retail that could be successful as opposed to just having too much retail just to have it.
Thank you. And so I'd like to go ahead, since this is a fairly large project, Chair would like to just go ahead and sort of bifurcate the questioning, specifics on this section of it. I'd like to go ahead and focus the questions to the planning staff and also Mr. Bull from Lion Living and his consulting team. So I'll start this with Commissioner Albano. Any questions for the staff, planning staff, and also the applicant?
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Belong?
Yeah, I just had one question for the studio units that are losing the balconies. What's the increased square footage? So what was the square footage before and what is it being increased to?
Good question. I'm going to see if I can ask my architect, Steve Gaffney from Architects Orange, if he can answer that. I think he's on, and I think Elizabeth or Rochelle gave him access. Steve, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, yeah, basically the studios before where we had smaller balconies or like a Juliet balcony instead came with a more useful sort of bay projection. And I'd say we're probably gaining about the same amount as we would with the balcony. So the 40 square foot to 60 square feet is probably what we're seeing as an increased usable space within the studio unit.
Yeah, and what's the projected unit size now?
I don't have the total square footage right in front of me. I don't know if that was something that was in the exhibit that you have.
They usually run about
on what the exact square footage is.
They usually run about 500 square feet, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than that.
So now we're a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Now we're a little bit bigger.
It seems like it's more utilized space than a balcony.
Through the chair, if you look on page 2 of your plan sets, studios average from 511 square feet to 893 square feet.
Okay.
Those are the lots.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fasadi. And Commissioner Belong, any other questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Galan?
Good evening, Peter. I am amazed with the architectural design. I'm very amazed. And I have a question about, I think you didn't mention about the parking space for the guests and the residential tenants. Do we have a parking space for them? And do you have a separate parking area?
Yes. Our garage that's within the apartment building has parking spaces for the hotel guests,
yes,
and the retail guests, as
yes,
well as the residents and regular guests. So everybody's parked inside of the garage.
There's separate parking space, right, for the hotel and residential.
That's correct. That's correct. The retail is down on the lower levels. It's open. You just drive in and you can park. The hotel and the residential guests are behind the gate on the upper floors. So the hotel guests will check in and get their passcode and then go into the garage.
Talking about the patio and the balcony, I think there's a reduction of the studio. They don't have any balcony, right, and patio.
The upper studios, yes.
On the size of the patio for the 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, are all the same size patio and balconies? Are they the same size?
I'm gonna ask my architect Steve Gaffney again on that one. I'm not exactly sure.
They vary slightly. Typically, they're approximately about 6 feet deep, and then depending on the width, anywhere from 10 to 12 feet wide. Just depends on the different unit types. The one bedrooms is a little bit smaller, and the two bedrooms a little bit larger.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to know about the retail mixed use. What type of business are you talking about for retail mixed use? Retail mixed use. What type of business are you talking about for this?
Well, we think we're going to have more of the hospitality, restaurants, and hopefully bars, and if we can, but or coffee shops primarily. That's our target. Although we look to have a few regular retail spaces as well. You know, card shop or maybe clothing, apparel if we can get them.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Galan. And if the chair can intercept here for 1 second to both the architect and Mr. Bull, with regards to the restaurant spaces, you're going to pre-plumb the chase all the way to the road clearing point for your exhaust.
Oh yeah, vertical shafts right through the building, just like we've done on the other buildings
Sure.
out here.
And one of the things that which I request that both the staff and also the applicant and the designer in consideration is the prevailing wind directions, so that we can extend the shaft high enough so that the aromatics does not travel to the windows all day and night long to some of your Price residents.
We can look at that with staff, yes.
Yeah, it's just a consideration that
I've seen the results. I know what you're talking about. It's Santana Row.
I wasn't going to mention any names, sir. And
Okay.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Ciradella.
Yes, I've got a couple of questions. The rooftop amenities there with the swimming pools and stuff.
Yes.
The wall around it, is it a glass wall?
We have not. It will be partially rail. We haven't finalized the design, but we very much like glass rail. Sometimes we use it a little bit strategically. If it might be a combination of glass. Maybe there's some concrete if there's a view we're trying to hide, so we have a planter so people don't get so close. But if there's a view we're trying to highlight, absolutely it'll be glass.
Okay, and then my other questions along that line is for Chief Zamora.
Commissioner Ciradella, if we can
Yes.
hold the question for the other department staffs to the next round, so we'll come back to traffic, fire, and also building in the second round of questions. Initial round, we're doing both the applicant and also planning staff.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
my second question is, at the hotel, are you going to have some type of a sign that says Uber parking or Lyft parking so they don't get in the way?
Yes, we'll do that in a couple areas, probably McCandless and also the drop-off area right in front. They can come in there, and there's a handful of parking spots in there for them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ciradella, and Commissioner Alcorn.
Yeah, I have a few comments.
Please.
So in my time dealing with development, I used to work for the Irvine company, and I held them kind of at the gold standard for a lot of this type of development. And since then, I have put you guys right up there with the gold standard. So I'm not trying to just shower you with compliments or anything, but I go to that Trader Joe's quite often, and in any other development, the parking for that would be an absolute nightmare. But you guys did a fantastic job on that, so I wanted to commend you guys on that. I was disappointed to see the downscaling in the retail space and the Sky Bridge, the second floor. You guys really had a good design there, but I totally understand how you want to kind of focus in on not having too much retail just to have it. But I think once the economy picks back up and things start to open back up, I do not see you guys having an issue filling the retail space just because of the environment and the area you guys have cultivated in there. I think you guys will fill those up quite quickly once everything starts to open back up.
We think our design will really lend itself to that. We're looking forward to creating like a real life lifestyle hotspot for the city, and perhaps the region. And Commissioner Alcorn, I worked for Irvine Company for 6 years. I look forward to sharing stories with you.
Yeah, they're a good company. I have friends who's still working there. But anyways, I don't really have any questions because I went to I took a walk around your guys' site last week and just kind of scoped out and looked at everything, looked at the development, and also the staff report was very detailed. And so I just kind of, wanted to make sure you guys weren't down, that you guys, are scaling back or anything. You guys, you're doing good work, and once things pick back up, you'll have no more doubts there.
Thank you. We're looking forward to realizing these buildings, I should say.
Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Alcorn, and Vice Chair. Any comments?
No further comments. I just had the one question there. So,
okay.
The staff report was pretty detailed. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And for both the planning staff and the applicant, the chair has a number of questions. So if you can bear with me through this process here. Question, in terms of the currently, are there any flagged hotel partners envisioned for this hotel, or if not, if Lion is ready to operate this as a hotel, as this is entitled for that purpose?
Our current plan right at this moment is to operate it ourselves, Lion Living. Not to say that if a partner would come back into the fold, we wouldn't look to that opportunity as well. I should say that shortly before the pandemic, we did have a big name partner, but things changed just a week later. So
we understand. And so in terms of the experience to the guest, will be sort of seamless to the as a now flagged freestanding entity, will be a hotel experience to them.
Oh yes, very much. In fact, our design of all of the activated ground floor spaces that you saw, that was inspired by our previous big name hotel. They were the ones that had the ideas for the bar and the fitness and the working spaces and the office spaces across that ground floor. So
sure.
Yes, it could be readily adapted back.
We appreciate the public space design, especially the sort of the plaza area which is envisioned. Can you just describe a little bit about the design concept of a public plaza, featured, and also, the lighting there, in the sort of to allow for extended use, or what, and also the sort of the accessibility of seating and sort of using part of the infrastructure there as seating areas. Can you just kind of go into a little bit more details so that we can be enlightened?
Yes, but I'd like to actually call on Clarissa Chung from Studio 111 if she's still on. She's the landscape architect designer, so I think she could do justice to this wonderful public space better than I can.
Yes.
Clarissa, here we go. Hi, Clarissa.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
And welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we were inspired by several factors. The very first thing is that this was actually the only area where we actually have public open space in the 4 districts. And it was also in the corner of a major intersection. And so this was an opportunity to really create a public space. And so we really wanted to have an open, flexible area for different uses. And so this is why we have a big lawn area, and especially because it's residential, semi-urban. We wanted to have also a feeling of a park. And so this is why we introduced a green space, like a lawn. And then our second design challenge was the fact that the building was 6 feet above the sidewalk elevation. And so instead of creating, 80 steps, a bunch of steps, and disconnect the retail to the sidewalk, we wanted to be creative in how we, step to the retail in more of a transition area. And so this is why we broke it up into 3 tiers, right? We have the lawn, and then we have a terrace deck in the middle, which is like wood. And then the 3rd level will be the retail level at 6 feet up, where you can have bistro seating, cafe seating, and then the second level where is the deck, that area can be flexible seating. Or when you have an event, a mixer or a concert, you can use that deck. So the inspiration was to just create a lot of flexible use, especially with our climate, right? We don't know how things are gonna change. And so providing a lot of adaptable space was our goal. So that was the overall inspiration and design goal.
Thank you. So the waterfall is one of the features that's associated with it, right?
Correct.
And are the retaining the concrete retaining walls on either side of the waterfall, are they intended as seating elements in the concept?
Only so on one side of the water feature is in the lawn, and so on that side we'll have a bench seating.
Okay.
At the level of the lawn. And then on the other side of the water feature is our ramp that goes up. And so on that side, it won't be seating, but we were thinking about having maybe a cascading water on the side.
Okay.
So that it becomes more interactive.
Great. Thank you very much for the elaboration. Appreciate it. Question going back to Mr. Bull, and sort of, can you kind of describe, in terms of line, how the intending on visually differentiate, you did a presentation about the color and the sort of the feel that you want to do, the sort of industrial feel to it. But in terms of when someone coming down Great Mall Parkway, and would like to be able to quickly pick out, the destination. This is probably the gathering place. How do you visually differentiate, because it has very similar massing, height, and also the bulk arrangement. And so can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, I'm going to actually ask Brian Watson, who's he's been the inspiration for our color and design material. So I'd ask him to actually speak to this question if he's still on. Brian, are you still with us? If not, I'll go to Mr. Gaffney with Architects Orange. Steve, are you there? Oh, I lost all my team. Oh, Steve. Okay.
Did you forget to pay your bills?
No, not yet.
We've tried to keep each element within the district or in the fields, distinctive, but yet working together. And that's why a lot of the pedestrian level does tie in and is very similar from building to building and block to block. But from the massing, using color has been one of the big things. And if you see the colorations that you have on lot 1 versus lot 2 versus lot 4 that are already underway, we've kind of extended that over to the sort of apartment side of lot 3. So that's where you're getting, the white and the gray, and then the big accent with the reds. When you come to the hotel, we did create 2 kind of mural walls on that, and it really trying to accentuate that as a boutique destination hotel. And so there we've kind of muted the tones and gone more to the sort of the plain industrial look, but looking to really use lighting and graphics and signage to pull in people into the hotel side of it. So, there's part of us that wants to create this diversity, but at the same time, it all wants to work together as a district.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gaffney. Appreciate it.
Excuse me, Steve. Brian is on. He was able to get back on. So, Brian, if you can comment as well, if you want to add anything to what Steve said.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Good evening. Sorry about that. No, just to elaborate on what Steve said, there is a distinction between the residential and the hotel in materiality. We have more stucco-based building on the residential with black windows highlighted with red accents of 6 different colors. The hotel, I think, is a much more substantially visually heavier building with black brick and darker stucco colors. So it will be an obvious distinction between what is hotel and what is residential. And then a third distinction is cultivated in the retail with a lot of glass and much more tinsel features and a lot of lighting, and that's fully incorporated into the landscape. So the distinction between all the programming elements will be clear with material changes, colors, but again, they all work together. They all have a conversation with each other. And also the Elion building and hotel, they have a conversation with all the other buildings on the field. So they're reaching out to each other. They're all brothers and sisters of each other. So while one building is featuring very vibrant, dynamic colors, the next building sort of takes that coloration and onto the next color wheel and elaborates on that. So they each speak their own language. But yeah, we've tried to make great strides in distinguishing each building to have their own character while still working together.
Thank you, Mr. Watson, for your explanation. I'm kind of taking a slight exception to the sort of to it, not in the terms of disagreement, but I think in terms of the perspective on how this is looked upon. We're looking at, from a more sort of static, we're standing here, giving each building and each element its own individuality to it. But what I'm saying here is when someone's driving down Great Mall Parkway, at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, the decision is to do I get in here? Do I go somewhere else? We're looking for a landmark. The original concept of a 14, 10 plus story building which serves a little bit like the quote unquote the clock tower. So everyone knows that's the vertical element, and that's the location where you can have a visual destination. I very much would like to see with a story, perfectly understand the markets and economics of it, but I very much would like, and also understanding that the inspiration of your design, but I very much would like to see, in a corner where there's sort of that defining corner there, where McCandless and Great Mall Parkway is. We really install and instill a vertical element that provides that verticality to the building, and that provides the inspiration for what was there before. It's 8 versus 14 at this point, and also provided a visual cue to the visitors who are driving down. There's the spot where we want to be, and very much to see the staff and also the applicant working through some sort of design process where we are able to add a vertical element in coloration or in some sort of material change, so that we can visually allow the visitors to visit the site without everyone looking at their smartphone and trying to figure out, am I there or am I not? You're looking for this visual cue. This is the destination location as it's designed, and it's probably going to be hopefully the highest used areas in town for visitations. So like to add elements in there that will give it lend its credence, as the important corner of the entire development.
Okay. We can we're happy to work with staff if we need to refine that corner a little bit to create sort of that I think iconic moment that you're looking for, that really is a beacon that shouts, "Come here, stop here."
Absolutely, and I appreciate both the staff and the applicant kind of taking on the task of kind of creating that iconic spot, at the verticality there. Next question here is that sort of does the public, are there signage intended so that the public knows the hotel bars and the sort of food service area is publicly accessible, and that it's not only limited to this is intended more as a sort of extended stay hotel at this point, so that they know it's accessible and that they have access to it.
We haven't fully developed our sign package yet, but I think that we're going to need to absolutely do that to drive people to everywhere, not just the retail district that we're trying to get them to, but also to make it clear that they come into the hotel. This is a public space. So we don't have that signage, but yes, we will need to do that.
Okay, Great. And apologies on the sort of 1,002 questions here. And can the applicant go into the details a little bit more about, it's devil's in the details about how to handle the sort of back of house operations, deliveries, trash pickups, and other sort of back of the house functions. So this way that the hotel and the operations here is managed to your and our expectations.
Yes, our plan is to have loading zones on McCandless Avenue, and we have 2 entry points, or 2 service entries, one at either end of the hotel building that'll be served by ramps at either end of the promenade. So easy access from McCandless to ramp up to either end of the building to service entries. The back of house functions that would need the service are of course on the back side, so there's a passageway. The southern end, there's of the hotel, there's a passageway between the little retail space and the hotel that takes you through to the back of house areas on the other side. And at the north side, near Great Mall, again, that's where we have the bar, and there's a sort of a bar storage room and market hall up there. Again, another service area, another service door where can be directly accessed from McCandless Drive. As far as the trash, our trash will all be housed in the apartment building. We have a 2 compactor area to contain the trash for the retail, the apartment, and the hotel. And it's to be caddied over, much like we actually do here at Touring, where we caddy it from around the building, caddy it from Trader Joe's over to our compactor area. So we'll be caddying it from the hotel to that little road that between the 2 buildings into the apartment building and taking it from there.
So it's the Lion day porters that will be responsible for that task?
That is correct.
Okay.
Like we do now.
And going back to the service delivery, so I'm looking at the site plan here, page 5 of 75 of your presentation materials. So basically you have a curb cutout that's along McCandless Boulevard, so that is going to be designated as a painted out curb strip for deliveries and service vehicles.
Yes, that's our plan, to designate some of that area as loading zones.
And I appreciate if staff we can make that a distinct notation so that the service vehicles are able to use them and without interruptions. In terms of the hotel protocol in the front, is Lion planning on sort of staffing that on a continuous basis so that we don't have one vehicle that kind of create the quote unquote the backup, all the way out to the street?
We'll have concierge service in that hotel. Well, maybe I misspoke. We'll have the inside staffed, but I don't know that we'll always have staff outside to sort of direct traffic. I think that would be fully appropriate during the busy times or peak times that I think you and I touched on when we met. Right, and the way it's kind of set up right now, at the end of that, you have 3 kind of angled parking spots. Would the applicant be okay with kind of take out the angled parking spots and make the entire area sort of parking so that we can accommodate more folks without directions? We're already working with our engineers to try and do that. We think we can add a couple more spaces if we go perpendicular. Okay, great. I think I've swallowed up enough time with questions, and really appreciate it. And so also available
question.
for I'm sorry, I hear a question.
I have a question to Mr.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Mr. Peter, you mentioned about the trash. Do you have a separate trash bin for recycle?
Yes. Oh, yes. Of course.
Especially on the retail areas. Do you have that?
Both recycle and compost.
Okay. About the drop off. So, do you have the handicap drop off and pickup areas in any building for handicap?
Well, we have our ground floor of our garage has numerous handicap areas to park and accessible like they should be. I think even one of those surface spots right by the hotel, at least one of them is handicap as well. So we're in full compliance with the handicap requirements.
Okay, I have my last question is, wherever you look, I think you have a beautiful design, the color and stuff like that. Do you consider putting a formal dining at the rooftop of the hotel? The reason why I ask you that because we don't have any formal dining in our, in San Jose or in Milpitas. You have to go to San Francisco. You have this is based only by suggestion. If you consider that someday,
Yeah. We looked at that. It wasn't formal dining. We took a long, serious look at putting a rooftop bar up there, and we just couldn't make it work operationally. I think we ultimately gave up on the idea, or just went away from the idea. We just felt like operationally we didn't want actually the public mixing up there with our hotel guests. And I know some hotels in San Francisco, of course, do that. We just didn't feel like it was the right thing for us to do here in Milpitas. We just couldn't make it work. We did look at that. Like I said, we just couldn't pull that trigger.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And so with us this evening, and also other department senior staff as well. So I'd like to go ahead and just introduce the first gentleman, Mr. Bill Todd from Milpitas building official. Commissioners, if you'll raise your hands if you have any questions for Mr. Todd. Commissioner Albana, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. With this, do we have also like pretty much, are we ready just in case we have an emergency for the residents and also for people around if there is like a great shaking or something? Are we ready for this? Are we prepared for this?
Yes. Citywide, there's an emergency command center that would be activated, and the city is fully prepared for any and all emergencies on that scale.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belong? Commissioner Belong?
None at this time.
Thank you. And Commissioner Galan?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Ciardella? Looks like, do you have any questions for Mr. Bill Todd of building?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. And the Commissioner Alcorn?
Negative.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Chuan?
No questions.
Chair, one quick question. This is, as it goes in, is 2019 building code, I assume?
No, they snuck it in under the wire.
Okay.
Actually, Chair, we're at we're in the process of plan review, and we're at, I believe, 2 cycles now. So it's moving along for the garage and the apartments.
Okay.
So yeah, it's underway, and they submitted prior to the change of the code cycle. So we're under the 2016 code.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate it, Mr. Todd, for being with us this evening, and we thank you for your time.
Sure, my pleasure.
Okay, thank you. And next up is the Deputy Fire Chief Zamora and Assistant Fire Marshal Garcia. And so I'll go ahead and also call in order. Commissioner Albana, do you have any questions for gentlemen from Fire Department?
No, not at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. And Commissioner Belong?
None. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Galang?
Sometimes I belong or galang. Just you have to pronounce galang.
No, I will do my better try next one.
Okay, thank you. No, I have no questions.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ciardella, you have a question for the fire department?
Yes, I have a question for Chief Zamora. I was thinking that, I'm hoping that, well, I think I know, but I believe the new ladder truck we have will reach that top of that roof where the swimming pool is. And if there is a glass wall or a concrete wall, once you put the ladder truck up there, are you going to be able to drop another ladder down so people can climb up to the ladder truck? Does that make sense?
The second part, we need a little more clarification. But first of all, I'd like to say good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission. To answer your question, our ladder truck has the ability to go 100 plus feet. And so I believe this one is probably what, a neighborhood of, I don't know, 72, 75 feet at best, if not a little taller. So we have the ability to go that high. Can you provide a little bit more definition in terms of the second part of your question? If we have a ladder truck up there with a bucket, you're talking about another ladder below for them to get down?
Yes. If there's going to be a glass wall or a concrete wall, so nobody decides to jump over the wall.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, operationally, I think that, one of the things that we have to do that is very important is to pre-plan the building. And when we pre-plan, what I mean is we have all the pertinent parts and nuances of the building from a fire life safety standpoint and fire operational standpoint. When our firefighters pull that together, they do evaluate the building and they look at things where they have to determine a course of action based on assessment of the circumstance or situation. And so in that particular scenario, they'll be able to prepare themselves well in advance, especially the fact that you have an amenities assembly deck on the 9th floor level. So there'll be some concern about how we evacuate people, save people, this, that, and the other. So that'll come in time, again, based on the pre-plan, and then operationally, they will sit down and figure out what are the different scenarios and nuances of this building so they can save the lives if necessary and rescue people as they need to.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Ciardella, and Commissioner Elkhorn.
Yeah, Deputy Chief Zamora, how you doing tonight?
Still here working.
You're always working late. I just always appreciate your input on projects like this that are a bit more complex. So I don't have any specific questions for you, but what are your thoughts and comments on this particular project?
Well, let me start off by saying that I feel very fortunate to work with Steve Bull since he came on board last winter. We worked very hard together to go ahead and open the Trader Joe's. So that was kind of a cool thing to do. And because of his experience, his engagement with development, I've got to learn him a little bit more. And I think we have a very positive relationship going forward. That said, I was looking forward to the 14th story. However, I do understand what was going on. Obviously, COVID-19 didn't help a whole lot. But that being said, I think that after seeing the renderings and how they interplay with one another, it's a good looking project. I think when you bring them all together like they did, it makes a lot of sense. It'll be the marquee, as I see it, of City of Milpitas. And so it's a good project. The other thing that we did is we worked closely with Steve Bull when they retained a consultant fire protection here because we had some high-rise issues because of the amenities deck. And the consultant that we work with from GHD, we've worked with him in other projects as well as some of the Lines projects in the past, and it's been very successful. So we're really looking forward to working with Steve Bull, Lines Development, and making sure this project is very successful.
That's all extremely encouraging to hear. I always trust what you have to say, Chief Zamora. So thanks. That's it. That's it from me.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Elkhorn, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I have no questions. I think all the prior commissioners had all the questions answered. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and Mr. Zamora. In terms of the fire, how many apparatus do we have if in the case that we need to reach the highest point of this particular project, or or another building within it? Do we have multiple apparatus available?
So we do have multiple apparatus. What normally would happen in an incident of this type or size, all 4 apparatuses, if you will, from the various stations, depending on their location, would respond. In this case, this is District 1. So District 1, you'll have, if ladder truck would be around that area, they would respond. District 4 would also come, and then of course District 2, and then District 4, or District 2 and 3. That being said, we do have all of our apparatus do respond, especially the fact that this is a very complex area with multiple buildings, multiple occupancy and uses. So it's imperative that we all respond. So you're going to see all our trucks out there anyway, no matter what.
Thank you. In terms of the apparatus accessibility, because once this is sort of fully activated, hopefully COVID is behind us by that point, and we do have a lot of pedestrians on the ground levels. Sort of if we have issues in terms of crowd disbursement and also the fire engines accessibilities, do you see for example, the farmers market, God forbid one of these things happen, a fire engine, if a farmers market is activated, and then you have a lot of pedestrians, do you see a control apparatus that there's a clear lane that you can access quickly and safely so that you are able to accomplish your goals?
Sure, I'm glad you brought that question up because we were just discussing it, evaluating the possibility of having this. One of the things when we do the special events permit relative to this market, we have to ensure that we have an ability to access in case there is an emergency with respect to the buildings, the surrounding buildings, if you will. So when we do look at the permit to allow the farmers market, we need to understand where those things are going to go in terms of, say, the tents, where the venue would be. We have to have clear access. So in case there is an emergency, we're not going to have any kind of impediments. So that being said, it is very carefully looked at to the extent possible so that we can ensure public safety is a top priority for the city of Milpitas.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And circling back, commissioners, any other questions for Deputy Chief?
Through the chair?
Yes, please.
I believe earlier in the presentation, we heard there's going to be a donation for an emergency vehicle. I forgot what the dollar amount was. Can somebody elaborate on that?
Yeah, that was $500,000. That was a community benefit that was tied to the original conditions of approval and today's conditions of approval.
And my question to Deputy Chief, is that enough for a new ladder truck, or what's the going rate for a fire truck these days?
Well, the new ladder truck that we got a while back for another project, if you will, and for operations because our other one was so old, was probably in the tune of $1.2 million.
Okay, so we get a half of one.
Yeah, so it would get an apparatus or whatever we feel is necessary to augment what we currently have. Okay. But they are expensive. They're not cheap by any means. So.
Yeah, and by the way, I like the new color scheme on the fire trucks. They're pretty cool. So
it's very trendy. I see a lot of fire departments doing that color with that kind of a rose burgundy red with the black and the nice little gold trim. It's beautiful.
Well, Deputy Chief, it's time to update your uniforms as well to join the times.
Okay. I do want to make a comment though. If you see in behind me, that was the original rendering back in 2015. And I've always had that ever since because I think it was something that we want to look forward to, but we know it's changed. So anyway, just want to make a comment.
I have a new one for you, Chief, right here in my office that I can bring over to your office.
And the last thing I want to say is my colleague, Chief Jaime Garcia, Assistant Fire Marshal, he's online. So if you have any further technical questions relative to the building, he's available too.
Okay. Well, Deputy Chief, looks like your gift is being shown behind Mr. Bull's presence.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Go on.
Yes. Yeah, I have a question to the fire chief.
Yes, sir.
In case of emergency, how many firefighters do you have on duty?
Well, usually we have an average of about 16 per shift. And so on a course of one day, we'll probably, with 4 stations, you'll probably have about whatever that is, 16 times, well, 16 per shift. So anywhere between 16 and 17, sometimes there's a little bit more, sometimes a little less, but we try to maintain a minimum average, if you will, so that we're constantly staffed. And then of course, whenever there's a sick, someone who's out sick, we have to call in for additional personnel to backfill.
Are you planning to increase your firefighters in that area, especially you're a few blocks away from this project?
Well, that's always the case sometimes, but we're close proximity to the buildings, and so our response times are going to be pretty adequate in terms of getting there. We also understand that with the 4 buildings and all the multiple mixed uses, there's a lot more than just living in the apartment. There's a lot of other activities. So that's one of the things that we'll have to work with our operations group, that once this is all built and done, now it's like looking at a grand master plan as opposed to each building individually. Because what we've been doing is touring lot 1 was the first one. We understood that. We got the pre-plan. Now we're finishing up lot 2, which I think by mid-March that should be completed. Lot 4 is on board and under construction. And then of course the lot 3. In the big game of this, we have to look at the whole thing so that, whatever happens, because you could have multiple events in different buildings, right? Because of what's going on. So it is going to be kind of unique. We'll have to evaluate as that comes on board, but that's where we're at right now at the moment.
We have volunteer firefighters from our community.
Well, we have the Spring Valley up on the hillside, but what we have on the Valley 4 is what we have on the Valley 4.
That's it?
Yes, sir. And then we also have mutual aid. So in case we have multiple alarm fires, if we need to, we'll call on our San Jose as a mutual aid, part of our mutual aid program. And they could be, depending on the size and the severity of the incident, they could be covering the city while we're responding to the incident on hand. There have been cases, it's been a long time, but we had other jurisdictions come in for support and mutual aid. So if need be, it just depends on the alarm call.
Okay, thank you, Fire Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner Galon. And other commissioners' questions for Deputy Chief? Okay, seeing none. And Deputy Chief and Assistant Fire Marshal, thank you very much for being here this evening, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And next we have Mr. Steve Chan, the Transportation Traffic Manager, here with us this evening. And I'll go ahead, go down the line and call in the commissioners on questions. So, Commissioner Albana, this is for traffic, the traffic engineer. Any questions for Mr. Chan?
Or even the planning, the staff had considered the traffic. That it's to me, I think no, at this time I'll pass.
Okay, thank you very much. And Commissioner Belong, do you have any questions for Mr. Chan?
No, none at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Galon, did I
Yes,
pronounce it
no.
close enough?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ciradella?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Alcorn?
Negative.
Okay. Vice Chair Chuan?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Chen, and Chair has a few questions for this project here on the traffic side. So in terms of the access on the Great Mall Parkway, there's none other than the major roadways. There's no service entrance from the Great Mall Parkway. What is the logic behind that?
It's the current Great Mall Parkway frontage for the project is inbound only. because this is a heavily traveled roadway with 3 through lanes and high speed, staff evaluated that a exit out to the Great Mall Parkway, similar to what we have done in Lot 3, would not work here because there's 2 driveway, and the temptation for motorists to cut across multiple lanes to get to the left turn pocket is high. That creates a lot of weaving conflicts, especially when traffic picks up. So staff was not in supportive of any type of exit onto Great Mall Parkway for this project. So all the access is inbound along Great Mall Parkway, but we were open to other access along Great McCandless Drive, as well as Market Street and Center Point Drive.
Thank you. And next question here is that, in terms of the stack length, on McCandless, if there's frequent backups, do we have a way to solve that problem? If after the activation of the project, if we find in McCandless, and if McCandless is backed up, then there's a sort of goes back onto the Great Mall Parkway situation. So is there a sort of a way to work around it? Kind of reroute the traffic in some ways?
So the McCandless Drive was considered as part of the Lot 1, 2, 3, and 4 development. At the initial project entitlement for those 4 lots, the traffic consultant for the applicant evaluated the full build out of McCandless area, and they determined that 3 lanes, essentially 1 left turn lane and 2 through lane, was adequate to allow queuing of traffic to exit onto Great Mall Parkway without backing up significantly past Market Street. So that was accomplished, and that's what's been constructed. The southbound direction of McCandless is essentially a single lane entry, essentially keeping that complete street, pedestrian friendly vibe that we're striving for. So that is maintained. So inbound traffic, single lane, they travel through and down McCandless, but when they come up from McCandless Drive to Great Mall Parkway, they have a adequate queue area to wait for a green light to go across Great Mall Parkway.
Okay, thank you. And so on the same vein of thoughts here, to consider a farmer's market for Market Street, would that create a potential backup in terms of for the traffic flow, on the main circulations?
The closure of the Market Street would not impact McCandless Drive per se, but it would require the Lot 4 resident, as well as some of the adjacent D.R. Horton development, if they previously or plans to use Market Street to exit onto McCandless Drive, they would have to utilize Center Point. There's still a way to exit out of that neighborhood, so that circulation would be accommodated by alternative route along Center Point Drive.
Okay, and the last question, there's a service ramp that goes up, to the garage that's been fairly close, and if we have any sort of again, I'm just kind of considering, once the area is truly activated, do we have an issue with, if we have service vehicles and sort of making a left turn across the street, after the public plaza, into the ramp to drive out into the structure? Does that present a problem in terms of crossing traffic?
Along McCandless Drive, since there's a median divide, they won't be crossing the opposing traffic, and between the traffic signal and the intersection of Market Street. So that's only 2 lanes merging distance. So I don't foresee any real concern there. Loading activity is usually one at a time, so we wouldn't be expecting multiple trucks, pulling up from the parking bay and potentially cutting across 2 lanes to get to the pocket. So with a single truck vehicle making a turn at a time, I don't foresee that being a issue.
Okay, all right. Well, I very much appreciate your responses. And commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Chan? Seeing none, Mr. Chen. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ciardello, do you have a question?
No
I'm
questions.
sorry.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chen, well, thank you very much for your time this evening with us. We appreciate your assistance.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Circling back to this is all the staff, other department staff that's available this evening for questions. Other questions for both the applicant and also for planning staff. If the commissioners will just raise their hands, I won't just call. I will not do the call out. Any questions? Okay, Chair has a few more questions, for in terms of sort of governing the signage, and also the understanding that there's a master signage program that's in place for the district, and I think this is a major destination spot, and the Chair would really like to see some sort of additional allowance and or applicant working with the staff in terms of providing adequate and large enough signage for the called the placemaking signs. So, for example, identifying the fields, the hotel and the vertical element of hotel signs, so that we can adequately sign them, and so they become a sort of landmark point as a visual cue for the visitors, and also along the public plaza, so that everyone knows where things are and whatnot. Would the staff and the applicant be able to sort of proceed based on some sort of general language in that we can sort of for the future signage, including some sort of strong design elements to establish a clear destination signaling and the wayfinding within the overall development? Is that something that's sufficiently strong for the staff to utilize?
Tal, I have some language kind of listening to what you were stating. I'd like to repeat to the developer and the commission to see if it adequately addresses your comment. We can add a condition stating that future signage for the hotel and other commercial activities on the subject property should be consistent with the design guidelines for the signage outlined in the task area specific plan, and include strong design elements to promote placemaking, destination signaling, and wayfinding within the overall development.
Thank you, and I think that's very well put. And Mr. Bull,
it's perfect. We look forward to bringing our application forward for our full sign package. We actually are in early stage, well, not actually, we're getting ready to present to our senior management the full fields marketing and placemaking signs. I think you've seen little elements of it sprinkled throughout our design around our fields, which harkens back to the old cornfields that were here. That's sort of our theme. We're going to be bringing that forward to planning staff probably here in the coming month or so after we get through our review with our senior management down south.
Great, thank you, and I look forward to have a collaborative experience between between everyone involved in the process. For the public areas, once it's activated and we get awfully busy, how are you planning on? This is for Mr. Bull. How are you planning on sort of handling the refuse, recycles, and the sort of the pickup and keeping things clean? And what is the quote unquote the concept and plans behind it?
Well, that's actually, I know there was a question earlier when I was having technical difficulties, but to answer the earlier question, Lion will be maintaining all of these open spaces within our property, and so that includes trash removal. One of the things about Lion operations before it was a developer, it was a company that would buy older assets and really enhance them and operate them well. So that's Lion's strength, is the operational efficiency and maintaining its grounds, and that will include the trash pickup for its own facilities.
Okay, and you will adequately address it if the frequency needs to be increased, and you will have the adequate manpower and resources to handle the additional needs.
Yes, we will.
Okay, I'll take your good word for it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm good for it.
Oh, you're good for it? Okay, I guess it's now recorded in the.
Well,
okay.
I can go in. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the comments. So so this has been a public hearing, and so can I have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
Oh, no need to have a motion to open the public
Thank
hearing.
you.
Just to close it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Ms. Medina, do we have any public comments on this item?
Yes, Chair. We have Urvish Mehta.
Okay, and anyone else besides Mr. Mehta?
Not at the moment.
Okay, well, Mr. Mehta, you will have your 3 minutes for public comments.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to all the commissioners. As far as the Leon Living's presentation, that there were quite a few. I wanted to mention about the architectural diagram that has been shown. That has shown the west, east, and the different sizes of block. That has been shown that how the building would be structured, as well as how the lightings, the other park, as well as the other cascaded water system that is going to be installed. So there were quite a few takeaways that has been on the architectural diagram perspective. There was a requirement to put the 3D diagram in there, so that's how all the commissioner would be able to envision that how the building structure would look like when you have a bottom area that has been grassy and the top area that has been built up on top of that. So that would be something more helpful from a Leon Living site perspective, if there is a 3D envisioning diagram with the structure block that could be added. Also, I wanted to mention about that when any building structure that has been built on a certain set of a fundamental structure, it is important to evaluate that what kind of a material is going to be utilized and what are the different how the building structure going to be aligned with each other by being in adjacent to each other. Also, if there must be a reason for reducing the dwelling units. As per the agent, that the dwelling units were 423, which were reduced to 357. So there must be a reason for reducing the dwelling units in the building, so such that if whether that is going to be increasing the cost of the building that is going to be built, or whether that's going to decrease the cost, the reason for reducing the dwelling unit. Also, it is important to know that when such kind of such kind of a building manufacturer putting up such a large structure in the city, it is important to evaluate and know that the history and background of the builder. That helps evaluate that what kind of a building structure that they have built prior, and also take the consideration of their designs as well. Some of the builders, prior to building the buildings in the city, they provide the addendum to the city commissioner as well as planning zone about their designs, that whether their designs were in a top 10 designs of any particular city or not. That helps to understand that what are the different architectures that they have built, and they also be able to allow the commissioner to understand that about the history, background, and reputation of the the builder as well. Also, it is important to understand that when any structure being formed, if there is a water system that is going to be installed, what is the storm water system, how it is going to be working with the buildings. That is also important to know.
Thank you to the speaker. And Ms. Medina, I assume there's no other speakers, correct?
That is correct, Chair. There's no other public speakers.
Thank you very much. And Vice Chair?
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second? Okay. A second from Commissioner Belong. And all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much. So the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, discussions and comments. Any discussion points? Okay, if I'm seeing none, and would someone like to make a motion?
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion. Can we throw the last slide of the staff report back up with the resolution there? All righty. Okay, I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 20-022, approving the site development permit amendment number SA 20-0004 and conditional use permit amendment number UA 20-0011, subject to the attached conditions of approval and also the conditions we added in this meeting.
That's pertaining to the signage, is that correct?
Correct.
To the motion maker?
Pertaining to the signage.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, is a second from Commissioner Galan or?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second. So I'll go down the line and call out commissioners for your votes. Commissioner Albana.
Yeah, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Galan.
Aye.
Commissioner Ciradella.
Aye.
Commissioner Alcorn.
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan, Vice Chair Chuan.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair is aye as well. So you're unanimous, 7-0. Item is approved, and we look forward to have a continued partnership with Line Living in our going forward, getting the district moving forward at this point.
Thank you very much, commissioners, for all of your
I'm gonna
help.
tour when it's all done.
I look forward to showing it to everybody.
Please do throw a party and for the residents of the city, so that we can all come enjoy your wonderful handiwork.
That's a wonderful idea to have a grand opening.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your time. And thank you, staff, for your presentation this evening, and to other staff members who have participated in the hearing. So moving on to the next item, here's the new business. And so as the city is adopting to the new general plan, the general plan 2040, a couple areas that will be more specifically denoted. This is going to be the Midtown. One area specifically is the Midtown specific plan area, and the other part is the Metro specific plan area. So with that, and there will be a little bit more of an independent entities as it relates to the general plan. So there's still going to be the staff currently is doing the plan updates. So if Director Thomas, you can just do a little bit of elaboration on both the Metro as well as the Gateway Midtown plan process.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So it's for a while now, it's been my desire to engage the Planning Commission a little more actively in our long-range planning efforts. Like tonight, we it's usual that we brought forward our development applications to you for your review and approval or consent or recommendation to the council. But over the next year or so, continuing on with the work we've been doing on the general plan, we'll have a lot of what we refer to as long-range planning items. And Chair Tao mentioned two of those. Of course, the transit area plan specific plan update is underway. We now refer to that as the Metro plan. And in the middle of this year, we expect to initiate the update of the Main Street, the Midtown plan, which we will be calling the Main Street Calaveras Gateway plan. So it seemed to me that there was an opportunity there, and to engage the Planning Commission maybe in a little bit different way than we have before. A lot of times we will undertake the project and get well into it, and then maybe we will bring an update to the full planning commission. But from time to time, it would actually be very valuable to have some input from planning commissioners, almost like a small focus group. So in talking to the chair, it seemed like an idea that we could, under the municipal code, it does give the planning commission the ability to form subcommittees. And this seemed like it would be some good work for the subcommittee to do. There will likely be other tasks or ways that we can engage the subcommittees in the work that we do, but that was one that I thought of. And since we have two specific plans, I thought maybe we could have one subcommittee. It's really an ad hoc subcommittee that there's not really a formal role or formal decision making that's made, but it's almost like a sounding board that when something comes up or the opportunity arises, we could bring issues to you and just get some quick input from two of the planning commissioners, in your role, both as a planning commissioner, but just as a citizen, really not just a Joe Schmo off the street, but as planning commissioners, you are well aware of all the developments going on in the city. You've reviewed projects like the one tonight that's in the task area. You've seen what the developers are capable of doing. So you're like an educated citizen where you can give us some very good input on these plans as they move forward, both for the Metro plan and for the Main Street plan. So that was kind of the idea we had, and there may, like I say, it's an evolving role, so there may be other items for you to work on. But Chair, was there any additional detail I need to give at this time? I think it's just kind of an idea that's evolving, but we thought we would bring it up tonight.
We appreciate the staff's recommendation here, and also question in terms of for the Metro as well as the Gateway plans. What are the quote unquote the approximate timings and that we're looking at in terms of the progress right now?
Mm-hmm. So the Metro plan was initiated right before the pandemic started. It slowed us down just a little bit, but we're making great progress. We have we've had a series of policy discussions with the council over the past month, and the last one will be on March 2nd. Then the consultants will start drafting the plan and conducting some of the CEQA work. They hope to have a draft plan ready to go to the council by June. And then once the council is going to put its blessing on the draft plan, they will proceed with the final plan. And we hope for adoption no later than the end of this year. But in the middle of all that, we did program to have a presentation to the full planning commission. I think we're looking at having that in April or May. But my thought here is that on that plan, we would likely, we'll still bring it to the full commission, but maybe before it gets to the commission and even after, there may be an opportunity to engage the subcommittee on various topics. And I'll also add that one interesting aspect of this project, and we touched upon it tonight, there are a couple of questions, is when the draft plan is ready to go, the draft plan will include, we will begin to identify specific infrastructure projects like pedestrian overcrossings or parks or bridges that are part of that basic infrastructure plan upon which the impact fee is based. And that's highly technical work that's done, and we have a specialized consultant on board to do that. But from time to time, there may be, I don't know what that will look like, but we may need input we would need input from the subcommittee on that item. And then the other plan, the Main Street Gateway plan, as I mentioned, we plan to kick that off in July, but the council is very interested in getting some work done right away. And so one of the things we've talked about doing is having a series of we'll call them community conversations. This is part of our public outreach that would be done for that specific plan. And we're thinking of a series of 3 community conversations, one around the topic of business development and business revitalization of Main Street, another topic around anything related to housing, affordable housing, regional housing needs assessment numbers. Where does density go? What's the best? What does mixed use look like along Main Street and other areas? And then the third topic would be around historic resources. So there's a whole body of work there that can be done in the next few months, and then kicking off the project in July. And then I think we would have a very active role for the subcommittee to play in that plan as we look at the different focus areas: Main Street, Calaveras Boulevard, and Abbott Avenue.
Thank you, Chair, for the explanations. What Chair would like to do is can take the privilege to probably appoint Vice Chair Chong and Commissioner Belong to the Metro Plan Subcommittee as a starting point, and the Chair would also like to appoint Commissioner Alcorn and Chair himself, to the Midtown Gateway Plan areas, as this is sort of a evolving process. The workload, and also this is a starting point as we kind of elaborate, change, and the shift. We'll have the ability to add on the third commission members into the body, as the demands arise, and also the subcommittee members may be changed out during the process. So just as a starting point, again, to kind of get us sort of kicked off and started, Chair would like to go ahead and appoint these the 4 members at a time.
Through the Chair, just want to just for purposes of the Brown Act, because I think the agenda it only mentions the discussion of the formation of these ad hoc subcommittees. So not sure if we should be doing that as a in the subsequent meeting, if we're going to be doing that as an action item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chair, would we be able to go ahead and do that as an action item for the subsequent meeting?
Yeah, we can add that again as new business. And I apologize. It's interesting. I had originally written the item to include this specific that we form the committees, but I took it out because I didn't know if we wanted to go too far. So I guess maybe it's better to talk, at least bring up the topic tonight, and then we can follow through with the specific appointments that you have outlined in our next meeting. And I should add, I talked that up because I wanted it to sound really impressive, but for those who will be serving on the subcommittees, I do want to say it will not be overly burdensome. I know that you're all very busy, and that just your regular planning commission work keeps you quite busy reading all of the staff reports that we write for you. And we do have some pretty heavy agendas coming up. So I don't want you to feel like it will be, another double your work in any regard. It would be a very informal type of engagement that we would have with you on these items that I mentioned.
Through the Chair, just another comment. I believe also the subcommittees, they would be subject to the open government ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Commissioner Alcorn.
Oh yeah. I would recommend that we have it as a regular agendized item and not under new business. Because okay. I think this is something that would require a vote if I'm hearing Martin correctly. On the
under the code, it just states that the Planning Commission shall have the authority to create subcommittees. So I can't comment on prior procedures, but I think I don't know if the chair has discretion. I could look into that, but if the commission chooses to take a vote, then yeah, obviously that should be.
Oh yeah, sorry, it just sounded like that's how you phrased it. And the fact that it was under new business this time, I thought was the reason why we can't go through with it in this meeting. But if it's under new business in the next meeting, is that can we take an action on a new business item?
Yeah, it's just because the way that it was agendized at this particular meeting, it was just the language was just a discussion of the formation of
okay. So as long as it was
discussion, if it was discussion and appointment, something like that, I think.
Okay, cool. All right, then I retract my statement as putting it as an agendized item. New business is totally fine.
Okay, Thank you, City Attorney, for your comments. We appreciate it. And so we'll go ahead and agendize it in accordance to the City Attorney's direction and move forward, in the sort of quote unquote the ad hoc committee as a starting formation at that point, and we will allow for further discussion and changes. And the planning director comment.
Yeah. Could I just clarify with the city
Please.
attorney? So, and we can talk offline about this too after, but just so the planning commission is clear. So we'll put on the agenda for the next meeting, but it sounds like under the municipal code that the chair, the commission itself can form a subcommittee, but it sounded like it doesn't necessarily require a vote. So I'm wondering how we would advise that at the next meeting would just, so tonight we agendized it as discuss, and then I guess at our next meeting we would be to form the subcommittees or
yeah, we can talk offline on how we agendize it, but just reading the code as it's stated now, it just says that the planning commission shall have the authority to create subcommittees composed of at least 2 members of the planning commission. So it doesn't necessarily provide guidance on how that would be done. And I looked at the bylaws. I don't see anything regarding the appointment.
Yeah,
or voting of subcommittees. So, we could talk offline and I could look further into it.
Yeah, and I bring that up because for those who had served on the commission before, I know in the past we had an established planning commission subcommittee, and they had a very specific role within the zoning ordinance that they held meetings, and we've replaced that with the zoning administrator hearings. So it won't be that type of a committee, but again, I just refer to it as an ad hoc committee and I brought up several topics that are of interest that the commission, that the subcommittees could weigh in on, but there, as an ad hoc committee, it could be other things as well. We'll just see what happens and have it evolve into what we need it to do. Again, the idea here is to engage the planning commission in some of the long range planning issues. And then, and the other thing I should add is that my intent was to have, and talking with the chair, that it would be nice to have a couple of the planning commissioners hear about some of these things before they come to the full commission, so that when it comes to the commission, again, those members of the subcommittee will be able to speak about what some of the discussions that they've had with staff on these items, and it will hopefully that will inform and help raise the level of deliberation among the planning commission as a full body.
Well, thank you, Director. Appreciate the comments. And any discussions from the committee, from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, so we'll carry this item onto the next meeting. Okay, so that concludes the agenda, and so go through some legal needs for the as necessary. Any person aggrieved by any final decision of any board, commission, or department heads of the city to the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the city council by filing written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fees. This time limit shall be strictly enforced. Well, thank you. And the next agenda item here is adjournment. I may have a motion, please.
Motion
I'll make a
to
motion.
adjourn.
Second.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, very much, and thank you, staff, for the presentation this evening.
Thank you, everyone.